Good afternoon. Welcome to Madeline's Kitchen. I'm very much looking forward to today's session with you because I'm going to make one of my family's favorite soups. It's a minestra, and minestra in Italian means a soup that has a meat base and is filled with different vegetables, and always you must include a pasta for it to be a minestra. This afternoon's soup is going to be based on beef neck bones. There are about 5 of them here. And when you cook them in the soup, and the soup is finished and ready to eat, the meat will be so tender it will fall off the bone. So we're going to have that as our base. And if you'll walk with me here, I'll show you some of the vegetables we'll be using. We have about a pound of escarole, which we have broken into mouth-side pieces after we have washed them and drained them. We have a cup of each of the variety of beans. A cup of navy beans, a cup of cannellini beans, a cup of, oops, I spilled some of it, butter beans, and a cup of kidney beans. Along with that, we have to use seasonings because we want our soup to have a wonderful flavor. We're going to use a tablespoon of oregano, a tablespoon of parsley, a tablespoon of onion powder, and about half a tablespoon of thyme. So we'll use those seasonings, a pinch of salt to taste, and we're also going to use chopped celery and some chopped fresh basil and rosemary. Of course, you can't have a soup without the broth, so we'll be using a chicken broth, which you can make on your own, or you can use boxed or canned broth. So let's get started with the meat. I'm going to put on my glasses, make sure that our flame is low on the front jet, and we're going to start with the beef. We're going to brown this beef, and I'm just going to begin the saute process with the beef. If you'll zoom into the camera, into the pot, you'll see these pieces go in here. Make the room for one more. Now this will take a few minutes to saute. And while it sautés, I'm going to brown it for you, and I'll be back in a few minutes. As you see, I've browned the meat. It only took about 5 minutes. Brown these neck bones on both sides, take them out of the oil. And by the way, there was only enough olive oil in the pot to cover the bottom of the pot. You don't want to fry these, you're just sauteing them. Now with the remaining oil, we'll come back to the pot, and I'm going to put the vegetables. Very low flame. The seasonings. And we're going to pour the chicken broth in here. Now, as I told you before, that's about 8 cups of chicken broth. Into that, we're going to now bring that up to a boil. And as soon as that starts to boil, we're going to submerge the escarole in it. Okay? So let's wait a moment. We'll take a pause again, just so that you don't stand here waiting for the water to boil, and I'll be back in a moment. Now, if you look into the pot, you'll see that the broth with the different fresh vegetables, such as the celery and onions and basil, etc., have come to a rapid boil. So as this boil is nice and vigorous, I will now submerge the escarole into it. So it'll steam. Now look how big it looks, but in a few minutes this will wilt. We're going to turn that in here. We're going to get it. And because we want all the flavors to meld, I'm going to submerge all my vegetables in here right now, even though the escarole isn't cooked yet, so they can all cook together and you'll get those terrific taste. So here we're putting in the navy beans. I'm now going to add the cannellini beans. butter beans. Come and look in the pot and you'll see how everything is coming together. And the kidney beans. This is going to be a very thick, robust soup. This soup will be enough for a meal. There's going to be so much protein in it. And now I'm going to add the seasonings. Give that a good stir. And we're going to put the lid on that. As this is working, we have in a pot next to the soup, I put on a pot of boiling water into which I put a pound of cavatappi. Now the cavatappi is here. This is a great pasta for soup. You see how it curls? We're going to just cook that until it's al dente. We don't want it soft because once your pasta goes into the soup to heat with the soup in the last step, the pasta will cook even more. So we don't want it to be soft. We want it al dente. And now we're going to put the lid on this and let it cook. And as this is all progressing nicely, I took a torta roll. I don't know if you're familiar with them. You can use any bread you like, but I like torta rolls. I baked it in the oven, slit it in half, and then put some butter and Parmesan cheese on top of it. We're going to use that as a little nest inside our soup crops. So I'm going to put this now in the oven under the broiler so that it'll just brown up a little bit, and then we'll use that in the basin here. The next step we're going to do as the vegetables and the escarole is cooking, and if you come back and look into the pot, you'll see that the escarole has wilted considerably. Why don't you take a look? Do you see? We don't have great big pieces anymore. It's starting to wilt. We are now going to put the meat back into this broth. Now the flavors from that meat and the beans will all work together. And I'm going to put a lid on this, and we're going to let it cook for maybe 15 minutes or so. And while that's cooking, I'll attend to the pasta, and I'll drain it and have it ready. So I'll be back in another moment, and we're going to get this all together. Well, if you come and look in the pot, you'll see that everything has melded together beautifully. But I'm going to add one more ingredient. I'm going to take about 3 generous spoons of tutta crushed tomato, to give it not only color but flavor. Now let me stir it in, and then we'll test it. Maybe, I think this is such a big pot, we'll go for 2 more spoons. It's a huge pot of soup, and we want the flavor to go throughout. And since this is boiling, we'll just give it another minute with the tutta rosa. And I have to do a little sample test. That is delicious. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm going to take it off the flame right now. And we're going to transfer it to a serving bowl and then into these lovely little crock dishes. So let's shut off the flame. I had the fan on so it wouldn't be so hot. Pardon my back, I'm going to turn around and put it here. Oh, is that heavy? Okay, and if you'll come around to this side, the pasta that I had cooking, I already put about 2½ cups of cooked cavatappi. Show you what the cavatappi looks like if you're not familiar with this pasta. Now, never put all your soup together with the pasta, because if you do, the soup will dry out. This is for today. We're going to serve it today, and I'm going to put the soup with this pasta today. I have more pasta left here, and I'm going to have a lot more soup in the pot. So let's dip in here, and let's get some of these delicious escarole. Why don't you zoom right into the serving bowl so you could see everything that's going in. I'm going to take some nice spare ribs. I want to call them spare ribs, but they're not. They're neck bones. Oh, and by the way, I'm glad I made that slip of the tongue because I want to point out to you, you could also prepare this soup if you don't want to use beef. You can use boneless country ribs. They make an excellent soup with escarole and beans. So let's see. Got one. Let's put another. Oh, look. Remember I told you the meat will fall off the bone? Do you notice what happened? Here's the bone. Here's the meat. So let's just take that meat. My goodness. And I'm going to separate it from the bone. We don't want the bone in there. This looks so good. This is a very robust soup. Now I'm going to put in more broth. Okay. Now look how much there's still in here. I've got plenty, which I'm going to put in containers. And I'll have it for the future. You can freeze it if you wish. I'm going to bring this over to the table. And the bread that we spoke of before, the tortillas, I put them under the broiler. And they're now in here. I put a piece of it in each bowl. And I'm going to take the dipper. And let's serve it. Let's serve it. Right on top of that nice crisp bread. And of course, we're going to add some Parmesan cheese. This looks delicious. Just, I think another neck bone fell off the bone. Because I see another bone in here. It's unbelievable how tender this meat gets. Look. Notice there was a lot of meat on it before. Now the bone has... And I'm going to just add a little Parmesan to the top. Just stay with the soup. Does that look delicious? I wish we had smell-o-vision. I have to taste it. It looks so good. I'm pushing that Parmesan right in there. Absolutely, absolutely delicious. You can't imagine. And you know what? The soup only took about 20 minutes to prepare. As long as you have all your other ingredients ready, I can't stop. I have to have another bite. It is so good. Just remember, season to taste. Assemble all your ingredients in advance. Have all your the greens all washed and ready to go, and make sure you shake them out good in a colander. Put everything together, and it's a minestra. Because in a minestra, you put everything together. And when you sit down to eat, you will enjoy it so much. Hope to see you soon.